Thank you so much for joining us today for this important panel on peace governance and the right to development, lessons learned from the Great Lakes region and beyond. I would like to quickly introduce our honorable speakers. We will first have introductory remarks by Ms. Trisha Riedy. We will then have Dr. Alex Mvuka, independent researcher, consultant, political scientist, analyst on the Great Lakes region of Africa. We will have Maître Bernard Manguin, who is a lawyer with large expertise on the Great Lakes region as well. And we will have about 10-15 minutes for Q&A and closing remarks by Her Excellency Urujeni Bakuramutsa, Permanent Representative of Rwanda. Ms. Riedy.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, dear colleagues, it is a great honor to join you today on behalf of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research as we gather for this important dialogue, one that comes at a pivotal moment as we mark the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. Allow me to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Rwanda, for her leadership and vision in convening this timely discussion. We're also grateful to the esteemed panelists for bringing their deep expertise and unwavering commitment to advancing human rights and good governance in the Great Lakes region and beyond. As we reflect on 8 decades of the UN's work, we are reminded of the enduring relevance of the Charter's promise to build a world grounded in peace, justice, and the dignity and equal rights of all. Yet, as the Secretary General powerfully stated, the right to development is not a privilege, it is a fundamental human right, one that must be realized through accountable governance, inclusive institutions, and the rule of law. The common agenda and our common commitment to human rights make clear that we cannot achieve sustainable development, peace, or justice unless we place people at the center and confront the systemic inequalities that continue to deny millions their basic rights and opportunities. This dialogue is a critical opportunity to reaffirm that the denial of the right to development is not just a development failure, it is a human rights violation. Addressing it requires more than just statements. It demands collective resolve and coordinated action. At UNITAR, we remain committed to working alongside member states, civil society, and our UN partners to build capacities for more just, inclusive, and resilient societies. I look forward to the insights and experiences that will be shared today and to the concrete pathways we can shape together as we move toward a future worthy of the UN 80. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the Embassy of Rwanda to Switzerland, the Rwanda Permanent Mission to the United Nations in Geneva, and the United Nations Institute for Training and Research for convening this side event to the 60th session of the Human Rights Council. My name is Bojana Coulibaly. I'm a researcher and conflict discourse analyst specializing on the Great Lakes region. I'm going to introduce the topic for today's discussion. The Great Lakes region is grappling with a complex web of security challenges, ranging from violent crimes, cross-border insurgencies, and intercommunal conflict and terrorism, which together drive refugee crises, deepen poverty, and undermine prospects for stability and human rights. At the heart of these challenges lies a crisis of governance. While addressing insecurity is fundamentally the responsibility of national governments, it also requires strong regional and international collaboration. Organizations like the East African Community, ICGLR, or the African Union play critical roles, but real progress depends on political will and inclusive leadership at the national level. Rwanda stands as an example of a country after facing devastating violence and near collapse in 1994, managed to rebuild itself through determined leadership and good governance. Today, similar ethnic and political tensions to 1994 in Rwanda persist in Eastern DRC, where divisive exclusionary politics continue to drive violence and instability, particularly against minority groups like the Congolese Tutsi. Too often, governments rely primarily on military responses, neglecting the deeply political roots of these conflicts. Durable solutions require political courage. Leaders must reject sectarianism and embrace policies that unite rather than divide. At the regional level, we must shift our focus from purely military solutions to inclusive political dialogue and cooperation. The international community, regional bodies, and national governments must prioritize strategies that address the root causes of the conflict. Only through such an approach can we hope to achieve lasting security, respect for human rights, and sustainable development in the Great Lakes region. At the heart of our discussion today is the understanding that peace and security are inseparable from the right to development, a fundamental human right, enshrined in both global and African frameworks. The right goes beyond basic economics. It embodies the promise that every individual, regardless of background, should have access to opportunity, resources, and the chance to live a life of dignity. Yet, as we see across the Great Lakes region, widespread governance failures, corruption, weak institutions, and politicization of ethnicity continue to block progress. These challenges don't just slow development, they actively deny millions access to education, healthcare, safety, and decent livelihoods, despite living in one of the world's most resource-rich areas. As evidence from both international and African organizations attests, this is not just a matter of economic hardship, it's a profound human rights crisis. Today's panel will explore how accountable governance, the rule of law, and inclusive institutions are essential to enabling the right to development. We'll look at lessons learned in the Great Lakes region and draw on broader comparative experiences to shape practical recommendations for governments, UN agencies, and civil society alike. Ultimately, we aim to answer pressing questions. How do governance failures limit human rights? Why is accountability so critical for lasting peace and sustainable development? And can true development ever take root without robust human rights protections and effective governance? Over to you, Dr. Alex Mvuka.
Great. Thank you so much, Bojana. My contribution today is going to be framed in 3 stages. Firstly, share a brief trajectory of research contribution to peace, governance, and the right to development. Really looking at where we have been, where we are today, and what kind of lessons we can learn from this research. The concept of good governance became a central goal for international cooperation and development in a post-conflict society, moving away from Cold War era focusing on propping up regimes to ensure ideological alignment. Liberal peace theory became the basis of leading critical academic frameworks. The theory has generated a huge body of knowledge, which still influences international interventionist approaches and national governance structure around the world. South Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, and the DRC became a testing field of these approaches. In these countries, international effort prioritized state building by focusing on national institutions with the idea to enhance capacity building. But such an approach seems to have worked in some countries, but in others, it has excluded or marginalized local actors, groups, and failed to address the root causes of conflict, as it has been mentioned in the introduction. With no prejudice, this is mainly in the case of the DRC. There is a major shift in research, really focusing on localization and building participatory governance systems. However, effort to implement bottom-up development models continue to conflict local with national. There's somehow confusion whether national agencies or local agencies or middle field is localization. Dialogue-based peace-building approaches continue to be led by the ruling national elites and international stakeholders. There is a body of knowledge advocating for local ownership, as I just mentioned earlier, and really arguing for homegrown solutions involving communities, civil society, and key local actors. This shift from top-down model, it is argued by researchers, empowers local communities to become active participants and the driver of their own recovery and development processes. On the link between development, good governance, and peace, the major research demonstrates the state capacity to implement policy across their territory is essential conditions for sustainable development. Other key research argument talks about good governance outcome being peaceful, stable, and resilient, where service delivery reflect the needs of all people. Participatory governance focuses on better policy and state legitimacy. Transformative and participatory governance prioritize power structure and advancement of social justice. Empowerment marginalized group to participate and act for themselves. In the interplay between governance and peace building, research push on building rule of law, restoration of state authority in really context of equity and ensuring accountability. I should have mentioned in my introduction that my second stage of contribution, it will be really on models of leadership that hinder or inspire transformative governance. Model of leadership would determine whether there is a priority in transformative governance that's participatory, transparent, and owned by the communities. Three models I can share here that are quite strongly visible in Central Africa or the Great Lake region of Africa. The model where central power holds control and communities follow. There is also a hybrid model which combines control of central power and local participatory approach. By this, there are three areas. There is a consultation to gain people's aspiration. This is mainly in the case of Rwanda. There's somehow consultation to gain people's aspiration of their needs, and ruling party pledges, voice, or targets, which are referred to in Migo, and mainstream this through institutions and service delivery. With limited resources, governance has become here the basis to measure the state accountability. Rwanda has gone through a journey from poverty reduction to social transformation. Model where there is a disparity between, this is the second model, where there is a disparity between central power and people's needs. Here, I often argue in my governance analysis, especially on DRC, that personal and private interests conflict with the state institutions' governance policy. Finally, my last contribution is really in the case study where top-down model has been resisted by elite that hold power. This is in the case of decentralization. Decentralization was a part of the outcome of the Sun City Peace Agreement in South Africa between 1999 to 2004. To reformers, it was a mechanism for moving power closer to marginalized community in the DRC, vast peripheries, improving accountability, service delivery, and development outcome. A technical and political refinement of government structure. For elite at national level and provincial level, it is the revolutionary, threatening central control and the local power balance alike. Decentralization crashed with existing dynamics consisting of a dual system in land management. An example here, in 2013, there was a legislation to grant the status of city and municipality to some urban area in each of the existing province. By existing, here I'm referring to le découpage. There was a moment where provinces were kind of multiplied. There were few as 12 and were multiplied to more. So at this time, this legislation was trying really to rapprocher les gouvernés aux gouvernants, to bring closer people to governance institutions. There was the creation of 77 new cities, subdivided into urban community, and established 268 other entity as municipality. South Kivu, the legislation offered a status of municipality to 15 areas. The municipality of one of these areas, 15 areas, Minembwe, was resisted, creating tension between territory and chiefdom. Provincial and central government leaders as individuals became in conflict with the state institutions' interest. The inaction of this municipality of Minembwe became contentious because of the type of resident who lived in this area. Their citizenship has been historically contested because of their physical features and language assumed relating to Rwanda. The installation of this municipality triggered and inspired extreme violence until today. It has mobilized various armed groups. So a well-intended top-down reform from peace agreement, just giving you a journey where it has been resisted and through implementation at the local level. What this means for governance in African agency. Looking at DRC case, especially in decentralization example, the DRC elite did not have a sufficient agency to prevent decentralization from happening at all, despite misgivings, but have proved more than capable of undermining its implementations. The reality of politics in the DRC and the competing agency that this represents cannot be ignored in effort to building accountable or decentralized states. Increased African agency, broadly defined, is essential in reshaping external engagement with the continent for a new era, but must be tempered by an understanding that the agency for elite does not necessarily translate to agency for the marginalized groups. Overlooking this reality can have significant consequences at the Minembwe case in South Kivu. Many researchers, especially in Ghent, at Ghent University, have argued that conflict remains an expression of Congo governance crisis. Secular contribution converge to the nature of weak institutions affected by endemic corruption, duality of land management system, lack of political will to ensure right-based entitlement to certain community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mvuka. I wanted to mention for the people who are in the room that there is a translation, simultaneous translation into French. Donc, il y a une traduction en français pour ceux qui parlent en anglais, et on a aussi la traduction vers l'anglais pour Maître Bernard Minguin. Maître Bernard Minguin, over to you.
Oui. OK. Voilà, je me présente. May I introduce myself? I'm chief officer of a group of Congolese lawyers, and we are working to defend the interests of Emma Bayamulenge and Tutsi of North Kivu. I must also highlight that whatever we are saying here, at the invitation of the people who have convened this meeting, we are very much open to have the same engagement in front of our friends of DRC, because we are mainly talking about right here in the law. And what is our historical démarche is based on the fact that we have noted that there have been species of hatred. I can give some examples, and we have collected many such cases which show the increase of hatred towards the three communities that we are defending. And this hate speech have never been questioned. And we recorded a number of complaints because we have a network of individuals in many countries, many villages, whether it is in South Kivu, North Kivu, and Ituri, who are giving us information on a daily basis and all the cases that emerge. And each time we are trying to collect all the elements, factual elements that are witnesses are providing us, and we are keeping these proofs, and every 3 months or 6 months we convey this to the judiciary authorities. But complaints have remained unanswered so far, and we are also undertaking the same démarche with international crime tribunal. As we are all aware that the international court tribunal is very bureaucratic and very slow in its proceedings. This morning, I did receive some news from Italy where an attack was ongoing since yesterday in a village with more than 100 people who attacked this village, and the local responsibles, the local chiefs have asked the government to intervene. So we set up this network of lawyers. Not going here to develop all the factual elements that we have. We do have really concrete examples of what happened, but I would like to work with you and to think with you in a prospective approach. Our first concern is a concern relating to the ideology of hatred for the others. Our network of lawyers and the communities that we are represented believe that the first step is to work deep down on how to stop this hate speech and how to take to court the authors of such hate speeches. There are people who are freely going around and are even going to official institutions in Kinshasa and who are propagating this or promoting the extermination of the communities that we are representing. This is something that needs to be stopped, absolutely. This is the first element. A second element on which we need to work is a long-term process. We have to work on justice. We believe that in the regions where we have been consulted, there is a real debate and an interference between the political and judiciary and a debate on corruption. So long as you have a judicial system with very poor salary and corrupt, that is really following whatever dictates the government, we will never arrive at a fair and just system in this region. We are advocating for an independent and uncorrupted judicial system, which is a big challenge for the region of the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Simultaneously, the issue of individual security in the region is a major issue. This principle of the introduction to prohibition to kill, to torture, to rape, these are principles that need to be translated into the life of villages. You cannot continue burning down villages just because they are from a different community. You cannot just continue killing people while others are looking on and laughing and even eating human body just to demonstrate that these are not human beings. This should stop, and this is a collective job for us. Those of us who are coming with the support of all the states of the region. So there is a huge work to be done, respecting every individual in the region, and stopping hate speeches. And the ongoing conflict is an ideological conflict. When we do not understand that, and when we see other reasons for this conflict, This is wrong. It is ideological. It is the dehumanization of an entire community, and we should all fight against that. Third is the restoration of government functions, that is law and order, police, and the military, who should be protecting the population and having essential rules for the civilian population. This is what, part of the work that we have been doing so far. And we also decided to move even further in reconstructing the dialogue. And to end, I know we do not have enough time. I have given the example to some of my friends, lawyers, and I can tell you some of them are in real danger for their own security. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Gisenyi, which has become Ubavu. I was in a restaurant. And in this restaurant, I've been going in the Great Lakes region for 30 years. I have many friends there, and we share a beer or a glass of wine. And after 1 hour of discussion, I realized one thing, which is incredible. On the left, on my left, I had former FDLR, and the owner of the house told me, you know, these boys, FDLR, they have been retrained as the security officers. And on the right, at the same table, I had Tutsi refugees and displaced persons who was serving in the restaurant. And we're all discussing together on how we should rebuild the region. I'm saying this because we need to keep deep inside that there is some hope for dialogue. We must, the community, our network of lawyers is not just to install law, but our role is also mediation, to install dialogue, going household from household, village after village, to try to build this dialogue. And with the leaders, village leaders, neighborhood leaders, in a way as to make it possible for them to speak to each other. And with armed forces, whether they are from Rwanda or Congo, should be able to have a dialogue on the real functions, the state functions, and judiciary cooperation. You know, criminality can happen in Gizeli, and then people can flee to Kivu and vice versa. So there's a need for military and police cooperation. And if we base our action on these fundamental actions and roles and the rule of a state, rule of law based on state policy and government, then I think we can create some hope, because every citizen, and this is our concern in our network, every human being in this region has the right to live just like any other human being. There's no reason why you in Ituri, you are Ema tribe, that your village can be burned down. People are talking about minerals war. No, there are no minerals. There are towns and villages, and people are living in this region. So there's no reason really for them to be attacked. And for some decades, they have been living peacefully with other communities. And this is what we should pursue. Thank you.
Je pense que nous allons aborder un petit peu ces questions.
Thank you very much. I think we are going to develop some of the issues that you have raised. If there are issues, if anyone participating want to raise some questions, we will take some questions, and I will see if we also have some questions online for those who are following us online. We start with the room here. Do you have any question for our panelists?
Has been racialized. And this is absurd. So racialized in the sense that there is some kind of an understanding that certain kind of looks really describe the true Congolinity. Then there is native right. Native right is really associated with ethnicity. So civic right is associated with nationality at national level, and the native right associated with ethnicity. By this, really ethnicity really is linked to customary power. If you are a community that has no customary power, therefore you have no right to ethnicity. And that is much more powerful to the civic right. It is almost kind of saying that before you are born, you're black, and before you are born, there have to be a law to determine whether you're black. And you're born, you're black, and then that law doesn't exist to accept you're black. And that's kind of a discussion you are talking about when it comes to ethnic identity. So maybe this is a little bit complex. Let me move on to duality of systems of land management, which really link to customer power. What do I mean by this? There is still two systems. At national level, there is a law which was adopted in 1973, which means le sol et le sous-sol appartient à l'État congolais. This means the land and resources underneath belong to the state. But in parallel to that, you have customary powers, chiefdoms, which also have legal systems that are still accepted. And those two systems have not been able to be regulated. Hence why it's still causing conflict, because some traditional authorities argue that their communities where they govern do not belong to the country. By that, the country itself has not been able to monopolize the legal system at national level, which is really land and everything belongs to the state. Therefore, nobody should be claiming that I am Congolese or I'm not, or argue that this kind of a neighbor, this community is Congolese or is not. Somehow, communities have right to decide who belongs to the country or who doesn't. And in many countries, civilized countries, Ministry of Interior is in charge of who comes in the country, who goes out, or foreigners or nationals. But in the DRC, that is where it becomes different. And they all really link to this duality of land management system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mvuka. Oh, question there. Côte d'Ivoire, s'il vous plaît.
There was a huge technical problem, and now it's solved. Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor. Microphone, please. My name is Amsador Alou, Deputy Permanent Representative of Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you for inviting us to take part in this event. My question is to Justice Menga. He said there is some hope that we need to have a neighborhood dialogue. And based on your experience, as you share it with us, based on all the years he has been around in this region, but this neighborhood dialogue, why is it not operational for peace and stability to come to the region, because this neighborhood dialogue should allow all communities to speak to one another and arrive at a peace, because peace will not be at state level, but it is at community level. And it is peace within communities that will be elevated to national peace. Why? What has prevented this dialogue so far? You said there is some hope. Can you come back on that, please? Please allow me, Ambassador, to tell you a secret. I arrived in the Great Lakes region in 1989, a couple of months before the beginning of the conflict. My mentor, a person who taught me the Rwandese culture and the culture of the region, who invited me to move away from my European prerequisites, was a Hutu. And he really wanted a permanent dialogue with the Tutsi. He explained to me how this issue, we should go beyond the ethnicity to go back to the deep history of the country. The tragedy of this region is that very slowly, and the political power did play a role in that, it has been inculcated and the belief into a separation and a war between people who were living hitherto together in the same community on the same hills. And this hatred that was being inculcated, we should all together fight it. There will be no neighborhood dialogue so long as there's no consensus, including among states, to say that we should stop that. For me, this is the absolute entry point. And Congo is a tragic metastasis of a kind of narrative that was installed since the colonial time. And we have all to fight this together. Every step, whether it is at the level of a political leader, institutions such as yours, is the key. If we arrive at a consensus so that the governor of North Kivu, the head of state in Kinshasa, the head of state in Kigali, the head of state in Uganda, all together, they decide and say, we stop this hate speech, and then embark on another journey based on what is common culturally and humanly. Then the dialogue can go on. So long as you have people who have another narrative, this will never, it will be complicated. May I add that in this debate, there are pernicious people who are using ethnicity to just get hold of resources, and we have to come to a rule of law in combating corruption, and this is the entry point of resuming this dialogue. And I believe in an institution such as yours, where you have altogether, you have this authority and power, you have to embark on this rebuilding of the region. And the population is expecting that and is waiting for that. Human beings are human beings. And when given an appropriate environment in terms of education and sensitization to know where we are heading to, it is possible. This is my hope.
Indeed, I think the main takeaway here is to have regional mechanisms that are in place, national mechanisms that are in place, and also international mechanisms in place, so that we can work together to find these solutions linked to peacemaking, governance, and of course, development. We've seen also, I just wanted to add the question how regional mechanisms do not always address solutions in a way that reach the people, the communities. We've seen how EAC was instrumentalized or was thrown out of DRC when they were finding solutions. We've seen that regional mechanisms or regional organizations such as SADC was being used in order to have an offensive mandate. And these are situations that don't necessarily look at the tangibles, at the realities on the ground that need to be first assessed before we can intervene or we can find common solutions. Thank you so much. I would like to now let Your Excellency, Ms. Bakuramutsa, for her closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. Thank you, Dr. Coulibaly, and thank you to our esteemed panelists for a rich and insightful discussion. As Ms. Riedy mentioned in the introductory remarks, the right to development is a fundamental right. And in a region scarred because of protracted conflict, this right is translated into very practical needs. People must be able to live safely, go about their business without fearing, trade across borders, and build livelihoods on long-term plans without thinking, what if? When civilians are persecuted, such as the target attacks against Hema, Tutsi, Banyamulenge communities in the DRC, and when armed groups operate with total impunity, development stops because markets are empty, schools are closed, roads are no longer being used, and families flee. Lives are lost. This today is what we're talking about. I have several key takeaways from the panel discussions, and I will limit myself to 3 points right now. First, accountable governance and the rule of law are preconditions for peace and development. Dr. Mvuka presented localization and building inclusive home ground solutions with community participation and provided positive examples on inclusive participatory governance. Second, inclusive institution and active civil society expands rights and resilience, especially in the context emerging from conflict. Maître Mega shared the violations that take place when impunity reigns and ethnic groups are targeted. Hatred and divisive ideology are still very much alive in the region and need to be addressed and combated at all costs. Finally, comparative lessons from the Great Lakes and beyond show that right-based systems unlock real development dividends when matched with practical implementable actions by states, by the UN entities, by civil society, and ultimately communities. In Rwanda, unity is built on the rule of law and the right to development agenda. Systems had to be strengthened, continue to be improved to ensure that the cornerstone of all development is based on the rule of law. From justice, development is advanced in steps. We're talking about concrete rights such as access to water, electricity, rights to education, financial inclusion, and access to university healthcare. The list goes on. The work is still ongoing, and it is important to ensure we are protecting the gains by ensuring peace and security on the Rwandan territory. Dear Excellencies, colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Great Lakes regions has suffered concrete effects of war and insecurity. However, there are means to remedy this and provide sustainable peace in order to ensure the right to development for all citizens in the region. Our citizens are entitled to institutions that protect them, borders that are connecting them, and economies that include them. I will end here and say thank you for your participation. Special thanks to UNITAR through Mrs. Riedy, for the collaboration that has made this event possible. I thank you, Dr. Mvuka and Maître Mega, for the important interventions. Thank you again, Dr. Coulibaly, for the moderation. Thank you for your attention.